Our next speaker is Zed Shaw. Who here is a Ruby hacker by any chance? Who here knows who Zed Shaw is? Okay, lovely. So for those of you who don't, Zed recently gained a little bit of popularity the other day. He wrote some ranting things about the community in general. I'm not sure how to convey this. Okay, who here is playing the game? Yeah, like that. Or does anyone know the song Banana Phone? Yeah, okay. So it's this general kind of feeling, but I thought there's a lot in there that the community and the software industry in general can learn from. Not only that, okay, so Zed has also written a lot of great software, including Mongrel, but it's not just because of this one thing. In my past career so far, I've had a lot of really awesome supervisors who have gone out and said, look, there's the way of the book and the way they're going to teach you in class, and then this is the way that you might actually have to do it. And Zed will teach you about this. So without further ado, Mr. Zed Shaw. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can you hear me good? You're in the back. Cleveland, can you hear me? All right, good. You might notice I'm an American. But I actually lived in Vancouver for about 4 years. And I noticed when I would walk around Vancouver, people would be like, you're from the South, huh? Now in the US, people don't really know where I'm from, but up here they think I have a Southern accent. So if I talk too fast or you don't understand what some of them saying, just raise your hand. And then I'll completely ignore you and talk to you afterwards and say I'm sorry. So the other thing is, so a lot of people that you're going to hear from and talk about, it's going to be all tech. They're going to be talking about technologies and things you can do and the wonderful feedback we're going to get from these mics. And what I want to do is more talk to you about kind of the dirty social business side of things, but also tell you a story about how technology kind of defeated that a little bit, and then tell you how you can save your soul while you're working at these companies, because y'all shouldn't. You really should be out there like doing the stuff you love to do, but that don't pay the bills most of the time. So you got to take lame jobs. But I am a total nerd at heart, so what you can see up on the screen, you might not be able to read the code, but this is actually code from a really cool language I've been playing with called Factor. And this actually will do my slides. So this is actual Factor code that kind of looks like tech, that emulates a DSL that creates OpenGL slide systems. And I'm going to run it in Factor. And what you're going to see off to the left is I'm actually going to run the presentation. Now what does this mean? This means I'm pissing off the demo gods. So the demo gods are going to get very angry with me at some point during this presentation, and I'm trying to make sure that don't happen. If it does, then I will just talk, because I really love talking. Okay, so thank you for inviting me. The bagels are awesome. I actually think the Montreal bagels are way better than New York bagels. I've always liked Montreal Canadian-style bagels, right? Yeah. They're soft, they're squishy, they're warm. You go down to New York, they're kind of like, yeah, here's your bagel, man, get out, you know, so. But I will say the smoked meat, I kind of like pastrami better down in New York. So you can go to Katz's Deli, it's about 2 blocks away from me, get a pound of meat. It's the size of a baby's head, okay? It's like huge. All right, so the whole presentation is Factor, right? Every square inch of it is Factor. Factor is very cool, it's very neat. It's a stack language, so it's probably different from anything you've learned unless you've tinkered with Forth. It's a practical stack language though, so you have things like opening files and working with sockets and pretty much everything you want to do. So if you want to have some kind of mind-bending experiences and play with it and like really get your head to think differently, go ahead and do it. One of the reasons why I like Factor is only smart people can play with it. The enterprise will never ever touch it. And when people go, do you think it's the next big thing? I go, no, and you can't make it that way. Tim asked me that. I was like, go away, Tim. Okay, so but why is it Factor, right? So what you see there are 2 little snippets of Factor. And if I actually click on these, they'll open up in the Factor window. And then I go like that and ask me, oh, did you want to load that one? And did you want to load this one too? And then if I type a string like hi and type the word big, oh, the window can't be seen. Good? Yay, demo gods. Okay. So you see, I just typed hi big, and it printed out hi in really big letters. So I clicked that out of my presentation. And what you can see is, before I had some code, and that's the code that makes that slide right there. Now I'm going to go very fast. I got like 79 slides. So my story is basically about industrial autism. Who knows what that is? Okay? Industrial autism is where you make something and you don't care if the users can use it. You're just sitting there like, it compiles efficiently. Right? Also, corporate greed, right? Corporate greed's a big one. Everyone's about corporate greed, right? But corporate greed bit us in the ass during their .com bust. If you want, go and read stuff about how that all got found out by a New York Times reporter. Bad Java APIs, stupidity, and Turing completeness, which I probably am going to define wrong. So if you actually know what Turing completeness is, please don't come up to me and go, actually, Turing completeness requires a... Don't do that, okay? All right, so all organizations have a problem. I got people doing things to stuff in containers. That's pretty much every corporation you can imagine, right? You got banks make statements and stuff that goes into people's accounts. It's pretty much, that's the entire thing that you're doing, okay? So that's called a document management system. I've got law firms, I got government offices, I got banks. These are boring. But that's what I'm working on right now. It's the most boring software you could ever work on in your entire life. People come over and they say, you know, I really don't like the way this button looks, and could you move it over to the right? And that's your entire day. So people are evil and stupid and they refuse to learn, which is why we have something called an access control list. So an access control list is saying, you can't touch this document because you are an associate level 2, but you can touch this document because you're a manager. Okay. No, you're the manager. He smiled too much. Okay, so with an ACL list, right, it's basically saying which people can do which things to what stuff in what containers. That's what an access control list is, okay? But a bunch of smart guys and PhDs sat down and said, this is the only way that you should be securing documents, and these are, you know, theoretically proven and all these other things. And what I've been finding out is that that's totally not really good. Originally, document management systems were sold and people used them, but they didn't have a whole lot of regulation, how you had to retain documents, how you had to keep them around, how they had to move around, how you had to store them. And then mediocrity reigned supreme. You can make the crappiest document management system, and as long as some dude could put his thing in some container, you were okay. So here's a trimmed down sample from one of the ones I had to play with. This is trimmed down to put one document in one container. The actual code is about 40 lines of Java, and it was slow as dirt. But it worked. The problem is that the ACL was fixed. For example, I couldn't have time-based stuff where only on Tuesdays you could access something, or I couldn't say between work hours you could access something. I had to just say this person has a very set role for the whole organization and is only on this one particular file, this container, various things. It's very hard to update and adapt. It's basically like kind of a hierarchical database. I'm setting and attaching attributes on files. It wasn't really a Turing-complete language. So now we get Dennis Kozlowski, and I always spell this dude's name wrong. But the best part about Dennis is I was working for the New York City Department of Correction on a tracking system that watched prisoners come in. I got to watch his fat ass go through the New York City public system and back up to state. Now, who knows who Dennis Kozlowski was? Yeah, Dennis was the guy who had the $20 million gold toilet. Okay, he was the Tyco CEO. He's the guy that like bilked people for billions. They still don't really know where all the money is. He got arrested. He's doing 17 years in jail. Okay. Enron's another one. Citibank. 17 people went to jail at Citibank. Actually went to jail. Officers of the company went to prison because of the stuff that they did, causing the .com bust. And Elliot Spitzer. So Elliot Spitzer actually rolled down to the New York Stock Exchange and said, y'all's crazy. And he created laws. So now your document management systems, this corporate greed killed the document management system. They now have to adapt to a bunch of American laws. Now, I don't think there's as many Canadian laws, because maybe Canadian companies don't have a history of screwing over the consumers, but...
Just themselves.
Just themselves. Okay, there we go. Right? But the American laws, what we got was Sarbanes-Oxley, New York State law, NASD, IRS got involved, FTC. Everybody got their hands in trying to fix and prevent the next Enron. Okay? So, but laws are written by humans, not by computers. And law is actually kind of a Turing-complete language. It's bizarre, and the majority of what you do in law school apparently is learn this language. But it has repetition, it has conditionals, it's a weirdo language. It's even got kind of storage where things can happen in perpetuity and various other things, right? But law is still kind of fuzzy. Things get interpreted, and that's why we have a legal system that interprets just about everything you have, right? So business is fuzzy too. All right, we're getting to a problem here. ACLs are very fixed. You go in, you fit them once, and that's it. They're not a programming language. You kind of set them and apply them. They're just basically lists of who can access what attached to resources. There's no real conditionals or anything like that. And the claim was, well, if your stuff doesn't fit in an ACL, your stuff is wrong. Well, the problem is now the ACL is bursting at the seams. It can't handle real law and real problems that we're running into because it's not Turing complete. It's a very, very simple problem. But what you'll see is even that theoretical underpinning wasn't enough to protect our project later. So I'll give you an example of, I've kind of modified the rule, but this is sort of an actual rule. So, and I'll read it in the way they read it. First I got to put on a smoking jacket like it's the 1950s because I work at a bank. And imagine I have a pipe. An associate partner cannot speak to an analyst unless there's a compliance officer present, except when their senior manager gives a business reason. That's an actual rule. An analyst can participate in a project if they're on a project for a client that is later than other projects, but not for projects later than their current project. This was the killer feature. Seriously, this was like months of development to figure out what the hell did they mean. And it's like, but if I have a later project that's a sooner project, yeah, but not with this project, right? So if I had that project, what the hell are you talking about? The best thing we ever did was get one of the business guys to actually start coding Ruby because he wanted to be a programmer really bad. And so we take all the features like that and be like, hey man, this feature's really hard. I think you should work on it. He'd start working on it. He's like, this feature sucks. And he'd go rewrite it and be simpler. Best thing you could ever do. All right, so a manager can review the files in a subordinate's personal container only after they have left the company, but can transfer their ownership of the personal container to themselves, which means there is no enforcement of any security on the container. It's basically a hurdle, and the guy kind of goes, oh, a hurdle. And he walks right over it, and he's like, and he gets all your stuff, and he sees your baby pictures, and you're totally screwed, dude. I saw you with those things in that folder. So the thing is these are real. What you run to in the past, and when I talk to people about this problem who actually work on things like Active Directory and Kerberos and those kinds of things, is they come up and they go, well, we just gave up on the problem because the actual problem is that they should fit into an ACL. And you go, or an RBAC system. You're like, well, wait a minute, no, that's backwards. That's industrial autism. So the problem is that your ACL is crap. It's bullshit, it's done, it's over. You have to come up with a different system. So there are existing systems that can actually do the exact same thing an ACL and RBAC does, but much simpler. They're like logic systems, like Prolog, things like that, or just a plain old programming language, a bunch of if statements. It's actually much easier. And what you'll see is this turns into a really weird story later on. So programmers hate this, right? It's kind of tough, that's the way it is, but these fuzzy, figuring out, like I just showed you these rules, you're all like, that's stupid. But that has real business value, like being able to just let someone seamlessly go into projects because they happen to have a special context within that particular container, within particular things, is a huge advantage. Because otherwise, that same person has to spend a week sending a ticket to the guy who has to call someone to make the planning meeting, to start the plan, to add him, to get him access to the project that has to be planned before he can start his meeting. And you'd laugh. I have a competition with friends at other companies to see who can do the 5th level meta meeting. So the meeting to plan the meeting that has to, the committee to set up the meeting to start the meeting, right? We're at 4 so far, right? Okay, so I'm going to say it again. The ACL is dead because it's not Turing complete. It doesn't have repetition. It doesn't have externally accessible storage. This is one thing that I'm going to kind of add on. In other words, you can't take an ACL and say, query that database or that LDAP and figure out dynamically with the database and the LDAP and then these 6 other things we wrote that this guy is actually who they say they are and they have this role on this particular container at this time because it's Tuesday and there's a midget in the room and he's got red shoes on. Okay? And you laugh. They're not that far away from it. Okay, so evidence against the ACL. So we had a simple compliance rule. One of the first rule you saw there was one of the simpler ones, and it would have required 270,000 ACL entries in just a system with 1,000 containers in it and 1,000 people, okay? It would require 5-minute polling updates because it was time-based. They could change a project or a definition. We'd have to roll through all the ACLs and continually update them, which means that you wouldn't have been able to audit it because by the time you got done with an audit through all the containers, they would have changed, right? You couldn't handle real-time changes. Someone would change something, you'd have to wait 5 minutes for things to change, right? And it would have required, we figured it out, like about 12 pretty beefy boxes to make this thing all work. It's also not future-proof. So imagine someone comes in and said, you know what? Managers can't change the container folders if the folder starts with the letter A. Now what are you going to do? You're going to write the rule that migrates all the ACLs over and then rewrites the stuff? And then how do you validate that? How do you go back through the ACLs, make sure all that works, right? You just can't. So when we rewrote it, all the rules required about 400 lines of Ruby. That's every single rule, all the weirdo corner cases, even the ones that I just showed you, only about 400 lines of Ruby. Very, very simple, straightforward. Business analysts could read the rules. We'd actually show them, is this right? They go, oh no, that's not right. And they'd move it. They didn't know a lick of Ruby, any programming, but they could actually read these rules. They're written very, very straightforward. When I tell people the reason why Ruby is kind of cool and why I do like Ruby is you can take Ruby and make it look kind of like English. So you can do some tricks to make it look pretty close to English and regular folks can read it. And a rules engine can tell you why someone can't get access. We have debugging things on our website that when you go to something and it errors out, it says, you're not allowed to access this because you're only an other and that doesn't match this rule, but you can contact this guy who's a supervisor and he can do it, and you can contact that guy, and all this stuff about how you can get around it. And then anytime we access a page, we have a debugging statement down at the bottom that says what your role was and how many actions you could do and all that stuff. Because a rule system can go through and say, oh, these are the things that match. These are all the things that you're allowed to do, right? You can't really do that with ACLs as easily. All right, so an ACL wins, right? Or language wins. Wrong. This is where we get into the really interesting part of the story. The suck begins. This is where the corporate bureaucracy comes in and crushes your soul like a mouse under a, what are those things that flatten roads? Steamroller, there we go. He's management, I'm sorry. All right, so we had to use this product. I gotta say this product because, you know, I'll get sued. Anyways, it sucked. It took 2 seconds to put a small document in the system. They actually came in and tuned it up and made it fast, they said. And then it took 2 seconds to put a document in the system still. It was awful. It took 3 seconds to get one out. We had requirements that were not much higher than this. We had to basically pull out about 10 documents a second, but we'd have had a huge machine just to make this very simple thing of, I want to put a document over there and let other people get to it, right? It had the most complex security that did nothing for us. It had this insanely complex security, and it actually wouldn't work for us. So, but the corporate interest required it. It didn't matter about technical needs. We were totally screwed, and this is kind of real programming. So when you work in a company, you can write all the code you want, you have the most technical thing ever, and the most brilliant solutions are completely lost on them. They have no clue that this is actually something they need. What you end up having to do is sit down and basically just kind of put it in front of their face and say, this is what you're using. It's bizarre. And a lot of times, if it doesn't match with some product that they've already bought, you're screwed. So a lot of times your manager will go out and buy a product. That's because you don't have the money. Right? How many people have used a time tracker of some kind, like things that track your hours? How many people like them? Okay, it's not the time tracking that sucks, right? Not what I'm asking. I'm asking, do you like the data entry system, like the way you put it in? Isn't it always like horrible? You have to click 6 fields and stuff like that? It's because you didn't buy it. Your boss did. What they show your boss is they show him graphs and pretty pictures, and then you get to sell off in a dungeon and type into this stupid time tracker thing, right? So, how do they sell this stuff? It's obviously inferior technology. How do they get this crap in the door? It's unbelievable. Is it connections or threats or subterfuge? No. Steak and strippers, baby. They go to your boss. This is some dude who doesn't have a clue. And they go up to him and they say, hey, I hear you like steak. I love steak. We should go to filet mignon. Now this costs them maybe $200. They take this dude out to steak. They take him to some strip joint. In New York, there's plenty. You got Scores, whatever. He's basically got everything he wants. He could do coke off the back of a stripper for an hour. And afterwards, he comes in, he says, we're buying product ZY. It's awesome. Use it. And he walks back in his office, wipes the coke off his nose, and goes back to doing what he was doing. Now, I'm not saying anyone I worked with did that. They're actually very good people. But this is really common, that the way technology sales works, it exploits a flaw in our system. The people in charge have no clue about technology, and they respond to things like steak and strippers. Okay? Now, for the women in here, this is one of the reasons why I want women to be in charge. Okay? They're less, I know some women actually steak and strippers might work on, but no. They're less susceptible to this. You want, hey, you like steak? Oh, no, no, I don't. How about strippers? No, dude, get out. Right? All right. So here's the deal, is your boss doesn't know anything. And this is just kind of a generational thing, okay? The people at the very, very top are usually an MBA, right? They're usually trained in manufacturing technologies, right? They're clueless about technology, and they never believe you, ever. And they're almost always driven by something externally. You're driven by code and tech and purity of the craft, and they're driven by stock prices and whatever's on their BlackBerry and the car that drove by, and then, oh, whether someone's doing this. And they've got total ADD in a total different direction, okay? So there's millions on the line. What do? How do you fight the monster? Well, first thing I'm going to say is you got to get in charge. Okay? Eventually, we want people who, okay, don't do the thing that every other person does that's in tech and gets tired of it and goes, you know, but those business guys have had a great time. I'm going to get my MBA. So what happens when you get an MBA is they give you a lobotomy, right? And before you walked in going, wow, the technical solution of this is going to be great. And you walk out and you go, synergy! 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 Right? I don't know if that'll work in this space. Synergy, right? I mean, that's it. So don't do that. Don't get an MBA. Get something totally different, but get in charge. Or if you get an MBA, remember that it's going to suck your brain out. All right. Management knows manufacturing. All of business education is about manufacturing. I set up an assembly line and I make cars or toasters or DVDs even, anything like that. I can take a manufacturing line and I got it so efficient and so robotic, I can move it to Asia, I can move it to India, I can move it to South America, South Africa, anywhere I want. And I can have the same thing running and produce the exact same technology and exact same product, okay? But that's not what you do. When they think in terms of what you're working, they think it's you're assembling things to make a bit of software. They think it's utilization, assembly process, return on investment. Return on investment is an old idea from manufacturing. It's not something that should be in tech. Okay, there is no return on investment in a lot of the technology that's used in companies. It's totally a loss. I mean, you just spend money because your competitor is. It's bullshit. Programming is not manufacturing. Okay, this is the thing. You're going to go work in an environment where they think you're worker bees on an assembly line, but that's completely not true. It's actually more like journalism. So you have editors that kind of make a paper, and they get a bunch of people to collaborate and make the paper. Okay, film, cabinetry. I just threw that in because it's weird. Music. I don't know. Does anyone do cabinetry? Am I right? No. Okay. So what to do? Here's my strategy. I'm going to give you like 5, actually 6 things because I started at 0, and things you can do. Kind of keep them in mind when you go to work. You're actually maybe going to be too low on the totem pole, but keep them in mind, right? How much time I got? Cool. So first, understand your problem. It's 0, but it's first. If you understand the difference between the ordinal and cardinal numbers, you'll realize why this actually is the year 2008. Anyway, it's social. Nobody trusts you. Nobody in business trusts you because they don't know what you do. They think you sit there all day, right? Seriously, I've always wanted to try this. And have all the programmers just, they're kind of sitting there. Anytime the manager comes in, get up and go, oh my God! Are you done with this yet? I don't know, oh my God! Set a garbage can on fire, whatever. Right? The manager will walk in and go, oh, they seem to be doing great! And then walk out. Right? Because they think nothing's going on. They don't really see that people are working very hard, that it's a very internal process that they can't watch. It's an artistic internal process, right? They can look at the output, they can't control it. And this is the statement I tell everyone. The management says, I demand all of your creativity, but trust none of your judgment. Okay? So this means they go, I want you to solve this problem. And you come in and you go, here's this really weird solution you'll never understand. They go, I don't trust any of your judgment. Get away from me. Buy it from Microsoft. So the first thing you got to do, right, is you have to gather evidence that makes you more credible. Okay? You got to play ball and be very objective. Okay, one of the things is techies fetishize the technology of the week, okay? They go and they caress it and they love it. And oh, Erlang, I love you, Erlang. Right? Then 2 days later, oh, Camel, oh, I love calling functions to add numbers, oh, Camel. Okay? So you got to be objective. You have to put on your scientist hat. I propose that there could be multiple languages and solutions, okay? And get out of language. It's platforms. It's how it integrates with everything. Step outside the industrial autism, okay? So that you collect information based on this. Stay objective, collect information. Build up information that validates what could be happening, not what you think happens, okay? That's the difference. If you go in and you say, I'm going to prove that Erlang's the best solution, wrong approach. You're going to say, I have 5 possible things. I'm going to go in and see what might be the best solution. And if none of those apply, keep looking. Okay? So really try to use whatever they're proposing. That gives you an honest look at whatever they're doing. If they say, use this really crappy technology, well, okay, use it. It gives you a way better way to come in and say, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks. You gather evidence, okay? It's going to be murder. I've used some systems, like literally I wanted to strangle a puppy every day that I use this thing. Right? I would just walk over I go, where's the dog? It's like, it was awful. And if it's good enough, stop. Okay, so then the second thing is you develop your alternatives. Now, you can go to your boss and you can say, hey, I propose that we use Erlang for this. And they'd be like, whatever, that costs money. Okay? Or you can come to them and say, look, I already wrote this in Erlang. isn't this so much better? Or you can actually come and say, hey, I already wrote it. Really? How'd you do it so fast? I don't know. I used what you told me to. Don't ever actually use it. Just show them the result. And they're like, OK, well, they don't have a clue. Now, so for example, in our stuff, we said ACLs are not Turing complete. You just can't bust that. That's just done. You can't solve the problem with ACLs. So just we said, look, they're just not Turing complete. That's the solution. That's also something that my boss and his boss and his boss and his boss can walk up the chain and go, ACLs aren't Turing complete. And he doesn't know what that means. The next guy goes, that sounds pretty smart. And the next guy says, achy eels are full of Turing's complete. And this guy after that says, achy eel. And the guy at the CEO goes, achy eels? That's awesome. Can we invest in that? Is it Web 2.0? Also, you got to use statistics. That helps. Good graphs, things like that, and simple language. If you can't state your case in about 2 pages on a memo, you're screwed. Okay? Make the graphs pretty, right? So third step is you've got your weapon, you've got your choice. You're going to demolish the competition, right? You destroy them internally. So what you do is you develop some pretty graphs, use some evidence to show technical limits. What we did is we had them install a demo server. And then we went and we just bombarded this thing and performance tuned the living daylights out of it. And we had these graphs, a very simple run chart. Up and down of the times, a mean for a green line, and 2 red lines for the lower and upper bound of standard deviations, right? Really simple. We go, look, that's how fast it is. It was like 2 seconds. I go, this isn't going to meet our requirements, which have these requirements. So then the guy who was setting it up, really smart guy, is like, okay, he spent all night the night before. He comes in the next day, and I predicted. I said, what's going to happen is they're going to take the mean. So any performance problem isn't about where the mean is. It's about how tight the standard deviation is. Because humans notice variability more than they notice absolute settings, right? So if I have 2-second, say, standard deviations of response time, but they fluctuate between sub-second and 10 seconds, everyone's going to think it's 10 seconds long. So I said, tomorrow they're going to come in, they're going to not change the mean, but they're going to tighten the standard deviation by using a new platform. Exactly what happened. They came in, we ran our graphs again. I said, see, same standard deviation, they just made it tighter, they didn't actually make it faster. Now if I didn't have those graphs and those statistics, I wouldn't have been able to go to anybody and say, it's not actually faster. Because the guy who installed it and who was the sysadmin kept saying it was faster, right? So it was very simple, 2 graphs, done, okay? You have to keep it simple. But be prepared for intensely technical arguments, because the people who want to keep this stuff around are going to haul out the best experts they can. When I tried to get this thing through the company, it was 8 meetings with every single arm of the company trying to kill off our proposed solution. I seriously felt like I was in some cage match, right? It was like beyond Thunderdome. It was like, it's the security guru, and he's got like a chainsaw arm, and I'm like, yeah, defeat that guy. I go to the next one. It was really tiring, right? But be prepared for it. You have to know your stuff. You have to know all the angles, everything they're going to cover, okay? Now you have to present your honest alternative. So the downfall of the steak and strippers maneuver is that underneath all the smart people who are actually running the company, they're smart, they just don't know anything about tech, feel slimy. They go, yeah, this doesn't feel right, but that steak was awesome, right? So they're still going to buy it. So you come in and you go, okay, look, their solution has all these problems. Now our solution is better, but it still has all these technical problems. And I don't think this will work, and we'll need help on this. Honestly, this is better, but it's only better than what you've got, and here you go. No, they're not used to that. They go, oh, you're admitting that it's got flaws? Wow, okay, that must mean that you've got an honest opinion about this, okay? If you're not, then they're just going to assume you're a sales guy, and they can smell bullshit in sales. That's what they deal with all day long. You're not going to play their game. You have to just be honest and simple and straightforward about it, okay? And if they won't take it, and you think that they need it, go build it and sell it to them. That's actually the best way you can go make a deal. So who remembers that Google tried to sell its stuff to Yahoo? Yahoo's like, why do we need that? Now what's Yahoo saying? Damn! Go, right? You didn't know that someone's kicking their garbage can around their office for like a week after that, right? This is very true. So for example, if you're out there and you got the system that works and it's solving all these problems, and some bonehead manager at the top has some ties with some stupid company, he's making use some piece of crap, and yours is way better and it's faster and it's easier to implement and all this stuff, seriously, find some guys in your company, go jettison off and start your own thing, right? If their core way of making money is not tech, they probably won't care. It's not going to, like, if you went off with technology from Microsoft, they might come after you. If their money is somewhere else and you go off, you start a new company, they may be your first customer. It's actually a very good strategy. So and after everything's done, you've tried to put it through the system, they can't do it, go start your own company. That's how you can do it. So that was our alternative, right? Here's what we actually did. So this is just one small piece of the whole solution. We eventually wiped out 5 other competitors, and what we've put together is probably the best document management system that you're going to get. And it's very simple. It's actually about 4,400 lines of Ruby, and then some other stuff that we attached onto Samba. It's actually very, very simple. But it does all the stuff that no other system out there does right now. And we had to get this very first thing. So we figured out all the graphs and everything that showed that the competitors were lame. So then we come up with, okay, something that's Turing complete, backed by a database, and integrates seamlessly. Well, we already had a Rails app that integrated fine, and the only thing that it had to integrate with was the Rails app. So we just did a 3-part solution. Real programming language, we resolve rules first, and we apply a rules engine. So we tried Drools. We went with Ruby, because we could just take the Drools. How many people know what Drools is? It's like a JBoss rules engine. Yeah, it blows ass, okay? It's yet another syntax for what is effectively a bunch of Boolean statements, okay? It's not really all that great. They claim it's faster, it's not. It's just kind of eh. We can just use Ruby, though, because you can take Ruby, it's an expression language, and every function just returns a true or a false. You take all your functions that you're going to run for your rules, you just run them. If one of them comes up true, cool, dude gets in. If none of them come up true, he doesn't. Done. You can even short circuit when you hit the first one. So, first thing we did is you have to resolve the roles first. What we figured out is the role you have on something is determined by all sorts of external crap, like what's in an LDAP and what's on this system, whether you authenticated and what time is it, and all that stuff. And you use this role resolver to build up all the evidence that needs to be used by a second system that checks the evidence to determine what you can do, okay? So this is really simple. We actually only had about 30 lines of Ruby. It goes out and hits the database and figures out, if you're a supervisor or if you're a member or whatever you have. So for example, this was 120,000 lines of ACL. So we would have had to do 120,000 ACL entries. Instead, we had a single function like this. Person is a supervisor. Person, container. Container.owner.supervisor equals the person. Yay! That means they're a supervisor. This was astronomical by comparison in the previous system. Okay? So now we apply a rules engine. So in our sample that we did, or our system, about 200 lines of Ruby covers all of your corner cases, everything you're going to need to do. It's the bizarrest rules you could ever imagine. And when they came out with new rules and crap you had to do, it was like a tweak here, a tweak there, we were done. When they came out with errors in the rules, a tweak here, a tweak there, we were done. Okay? 200 lines of Ruby that we haven't really changed a whole lot. Okay? So this would have been 10 ACLs per person, per container, per action. Okay? Just to cover what a supervisor can do. So you pass in the supervisor, the action, the role, a bunch of other little fluffy pieces of information, and it just says, if the person is departed and the allowed actions include that action and the role supervisor, then they can do it. See, simple Boolean statement, that's it. Now we can take this and we show it to business people, the business analysts. They go, yeah, that's right. I say, no, that's not right. A role, it shouldn't be if he's departed, but if he's not departed, they can change it up. So we had this really impressive case. We had functioning code. We cut out something like 8,000 lines of code in exchange for about 500. Okay? Role resolving, everything like that. Very simple, straightforward. Nothing's stored. No ACLs are kept anywhere. It's all based on basically implied information on who's in what containers and where they're from and where they're in other systems and things like that. Okay? And then this is where your lesson kind of comes in. They still wanted the crappy older thing. It didn't matter. We had proven that the thing was garbage, that it was slow, that we had a better solution, we could do it all by ourselves, that it worked faster. They still wanted the older thing. And when you get to this point, it's nothing to do with the technology. It has nothing to do with the technology at that point. It's all the social problem and then. Okay? What mattered was that it had the same name. So here's the deal. They had this existing product they had for about 10 years, right? And this old product had this name. So the company that made the product came out with the second name. Okay? So the first one was called Document Store 2000. Then they came out with Document Store New Gen. That was it. It was actually a completely different. The first one was written in like C#, the next or C++. The next one was written in Java. But because they had the same name, our manager's manager could go to someone else and say, "It's the same thing. Pay me money to buy it." If he went to him and said, "Oh, we're going to scrap that old system," they'd had questions and nobody wanted to talk about it. Right? I'm not kidding. It was the same name. That's the only reason why they wanted to use this thing, because they didn't have to explain to their boss why they should get rid of it. That's the stupidity you deal with in the real world. Okay? It's idiotic, but that's what you got to deal with. We actually toyed with taking our system and just naming it as like, Document Store Super Awesome Next Gen. And then we'd be like, oh, you're going to buy Document Store Super Awesome Next Gen. Oh, really? What's that written in? Oh, Ruby. Really? That's cool. Okay, here's your money. Right? So instead, remember, they don't get tech at the top. They think you're all liars, every single one of them, that you're lazy, right? They barely get the web, and that's why the same name mattered, okay? So how do we win? It was after months and months of wasted money. And we just kept hammering that, okay, look, what we have works and what you want us to use doesn't. What we have works and what you want us to use doesn't. And they send out their best guy. And this was a really great guy, and I really felt sorry for him because he came out, he was basically, everything was on him. And the company sent this guy out, and he spent a week with us. And we had just one simple task. So remember the one that had 270,000 ACL entries? I told him, all right, why don't you implement that one? And he couldn't do it. I knew, because theoretically, the theory says if it's not Turing complete, this thing won't be able to be implemented. So I said, implement that one. And he couldn't do it. He explained how we could do just about everything. And so then we just carted manager after manager in front of this guy. And we said, why don't you explain the problem to him again? And they're proposing all these solutions. And we go, no, that doesn't work. It was literally weeks and weeks. And then I had to shoot people down. It was weeks and weeks. Had nothing to do with the tech. It was all meetings and talking to people and going after people and getting people to change it. Now that's depressing, right? And this is the reason why I tell you all, you're going to go out and work in a company, right? There's another part of this presentation about how to keep your soul. Because that stuff will kill you, right? You'll get out and you go become a lawyer. Don't become a lawyer. I have to write this crap because of lawyers. All right. According to a corporation, you are a factory worker, all right? How many people have more than 4 years of education in here? Right? Who's pushing 6? Adrian, you can't raise your hand, man. I already know. The guy in front of you, right in front of you. Is your name Adrian too? Okay, that's Adrian. How about 10? Who's got about 10 years? Okay, there's 1 or 2 people. Okay, it don't matter. Factory workers. Seriously, you could be popping a rivet in a factory somewhere in Detroit. I don't know, do they even pop rivets in factories in Detroit anymore? The general attitude, and they're going to be nice about it in some companies and mean about it in others, but it's like, shut up and do as you're told. That's pretty much what they want you to do. And be creative, but they want you to be creative or you're going to get fired. So it's this contradiction. It's like I said, I demand all your creativity, but trust none of your judgment, okay? And you fill out timesheets all day long, like you're punching a clock. But people work some hours. Creativity is a weird thing. It doesn't have a daytime hours or whatever. I get some of my best ideas 2 a.m. or in the shower. It's weird, right? So the business leaders don't really like you, okay? Because they need you and they don't understand anything you do, right? They just don't really like you. They have to keep you around because they know they can't build the stuff they want to build by themselves, right? It's depressing. And the salespeople know this. They know if they go to your boss, right, and they give him steak and strippers, and he's like, oh, somebody I can trust who wants money. I'm going to buy their product. I've had guys walk up, and I'll walk in my office, there's like this box. And I go, what the hell's that? And they go, you should use this. Oh, what is it? It makes portlets. Okay, how much do you spend on that? $30,000? It's like, that's 2 interns. I could have got 2 smart cats from college to come in and write this thing for me. Yeah, but this I had to pay for. So they trust someone they can buy, right? They trust a box. I put something in a box, and then I can buy it. They don't trust you. You're not in a box. Although, I don't know. You might. Yeah, you look like a box guy, right? You climb inside. You're like, I'm in my box. No? I pick on people at random, so. All right. So here's what I'm going to say. Fight your hardest to not be a corporate coder, okay? Now here's what I'm going to define as a corporate coder. It's not an offensive term because everyone's got to eat. So I'm a corporate coder right now, okay? See, wait, you're a corporate coder, asshole. So here's the deal, is your life as a geek or as a coder, right, should be all about exploring this fun new domain, this new frontier that nobody else gets, right? How many people have like boyfriends and girlfriends and they can't talk to them about the stuff they do all day? Right? Okay? You can only come to conferences and talk to other geeks about the stuff you do. Okay? And then you go to work, you can work for some asswipe who doesn't understand a single thing you say. Right? Don't give him any of your work or your effort. Right? So you can still work at a corporation and not be a corporate coder. So a corporate coder comes to work, acts like a factory worker, works only on the stuff he's supposed to, works on one language, right? And then goes home and never touches code again, okay? So what you have to do is kind of the opposite. You come in, You work on the stuff you're supposed to, but then you go home and you do something fun, something cool, something geek, something whether it's playing guitar with weird stuff or taking photography or making new technologies, whatever you can get your hands on to do something that's not corporate and very strange. But there's a problem. You still got to code during the day, so you get a little burnt out, right? Okay. So here's some strategies for you. So the first tip for not losing your soul, right? I work for a corporation, but I'm not their coder, okay? They're renting me for a period of time. I have no loyalty. I have no reason to stay around, nothing. They treat me like gold or I walk, because there's 2 other companies that are willing to buy me, okay? Now you think maybe not you, right? Okay, maybe not you, but it's not true. If you're a corporate coder, that's true. You have to stay at the one company you're at because all your knowledge is held up in their stupid little bureaucracy, right? You know how to fill out the TPS report that gets the budget started for the... That's seriously, like at the place I'm at now, it's like 90% of the crap is just stupid bureaucracy. It has nothing to do with actually producing a product that people can use, okay? So you just don't do that. Make yourself something, you're just basically renting yourself to them for a period of time and they get to borrow you. And maybe it's a really great company and you really like working there, that's cool. But yourself as a human being is not defined by your job, okay? So my work is kind of my art and my expression, and they get none of that. Okay? They don't get any expressive Zed. They don't get a blog like a web app that says Zed's so fucking awesome, right? That's my blog, okay? They don't get cool little software and stuff like that. They get, oh, well, good solutions, and I do my best, and I work really hard to make sure they get what they want, right? But if that's what they want, then that's really all they get. I don't go out there and come in like, hey, this is a cool idea, you should try it. Because I know they won't accept it. They won't take any of it in, and they won't be interested in it, right? So the trick is, if they start trusting my judgment, then maybe I'll do something for them. So if they flip it, I trust all of your judgment, and I wonder what you think you could make. That's a very different attitude. Some of the good companies get that. Amazon kind of gets that. Google kind of gets that. Microsoft kind of gets that. They go, hey, here's some stuff. Go play with it. Okay? Now, not all of Google does, and not all of Microsoft does, right? They still have the same other type of coding. But the cool research stars, the IBM, stuff like that, that's how they treat things. We trust your judgment. You think that's the best way to implement the file system? Then cool, you're the guy that knows file systems. Okay? So what you have is you have work coding at work. Okay, so work coding is boring and effortless, and you can do it in your sleep, and it's methodical, and it's just, you play music and you hang out, and you kind of do your thing, and you just go boom, 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 like a factory. If they want to treat you like a factory worker, then you act like a factory worker. You come in, you punch your rivet, you punch your time clock, you roll on home, okay? You don't really do anything new. How many people love coming in and building these giant crystal palaces of Java interaction, and oh my God, it's so beautiful, right? Bullshit. I'll like write a single script that does the exact same thing and cram it in a cron job and go home, right? They'll be like, but it's got to run in a task scheduler. Bullshit, cron job later. Be like, but, cron job, right? So nothing new, right? There's not much of a reason for you to invest a lot of your time into a company that really doesn't like you. If you have a company that does like you, right, don't get fooled into them making you feel good about being there. If they really value your opinion and value your code and value creativity and they make money off of it, you should have a chunk of the company, right? You should have some profit sharing. If they ain't giving you profit sharing, don't give them anything in return, okay? And the reason why I'm saying this is because I'm sick of programmers going in, getting a $60K a year job at Google and going like, ah, it's awesome, I get to eat food all day. I weigh 1 billion pounds and all I do is code Java with JWT or what's it, Google Web Toolkit. Ugh. Right? So seriously, if you're making money, if the company makes money off the sweat off your back, you get a chunk. If you don't get a chunk, then you give them what they absolutely ask for, keep it to a minimum, be friendly, be very professional, do your stuff, make sure it's well written, but don't go out of your way to give them like your latest, greatest research or your idea or whatever, okay? But you're still going to work and coding all day, and then your brain gets tired, and you go home, and you just want to hang around playing Nintendo, and you know. So here's what I do: play coding at home, okay? So play coding is weird for me, right? I do bizarre stuff. I play with Factor, I mess with sound, I'm getting into graphics. This is stuff my company has no interest in at all, ever, okay? This keeps my mind sharp, it keeps me on the edge. It's going to be something that nobody believes in. Don't listen to anyone when they tell you like, oh, you know what, you have to use an ACL. It shouldn't be like a Turing-complete language or anything like that. Don't listen to them. If they tell you, oh man, the web is the only way to talk to any other computer ever, screw them. Make your own protocols. Play with your own stuff. Even if nobody ever sees it, get out there and do your own thing and your own cool stuff. This will keep you sane. It'll keep you sharp. It'll keep you smart. You'll be able to go off and do other stuff. You can go into sociology and medicine and whatever, and you'll be a smart person. If all you ever do is corporate coding, you'll be a corporate drone. You won't actually ever do anything interesting, unless you write a book about being a corporate drone. Then, you know. So you've got to grab your geek soul and keep it at home, and go into work and kind of just work to get your job. And if they change their attitude, then maybe you do something different. But I guarantee it doesn't really work that way. And the biggest thing is you have to create. Okay? If you want to do this for the rest of your life, like I love tech and I love making cool stuff because it's the frontier, right? Nobody before us really had this weird thing where we can make, what I tell people is you're making poetry people can play with, okay? So you're making code, nobody else sees the code except for other experts. So you have this inside joke, okay? And then you can hand it to your friends like, what do you think? And they go like, wow, this is awesome, I can chat. But behind that could be some cool algorithms, some neat stuff, and only other programmers get it. You have a way of expressing yourself that other people before you haven't had. You can be artistic and technical and cool all at the same time, right? But you don't want to do this for a company that doesn't really care, right? All they care about is a document management system, right? I mean, who wants to, raise your hands, who wants to make the best document management system ever? Oh, who wants to make the best time tracker? Oh, yay, time trackers, right? Okay, who wants to do the next accounting system, right? Oh, the next accounting system. We got one for the accounting system. Now, that's the deal, right? There's money in that, right? There's money in it, okay? But unless you're making the money too, it's not really fair, because basically some moron who's running the company is using your creativity and your life's work to make themselves rich. So get it? Oh, you run the company. Okay. Maybe this is the guy to go work for it. Oh no, I'll talk to him first and I'll tell you, right? If I'm over here and I'm like, yeah, oh, that's really cool, man. He's an asshole, okay? If I'm over here and I'm like, yeah, man, that's really cool. Go work for him, all right? Oh wait, you were right there. Damn. And the biggest thing though is make something really different. So at work, it's all financial stuff. At home, I don't touch money. I don't do anything related to money. I don't do anything related to document management. I go home and I write network protocols and I'm working on a book and I play with music and I just play around with tech and then I write and I put it out there and I get out in front of people. And people will hate you, they'll love you, they'll think it's awesome, they'll think you suck. But the point is you're out there putting stuff out there, right? And you're making something, you're creating something. Now some of you, maybe you don't want to be the public figure type, but still at home, work on your own stuff, right? Build up your own repertoire of capabilities and knowledge. Explore all the different ways that this technology can be used to solve problems, to create problems, to invent problems. Think about it. Don't just sit at home and be like, oh, Survivor's on. I'm going to watch Heroes now, right? Now, TV's cool, but, you know, code too, right? Exactly. So now here's the other thing, is someone told me, okay, but humans are afraid of change, okay? How many people go watch movies? Yeah, you like movies, right? Okay, that's an experience, that's different. How many people go like mountain biking and skiing, play sports, go fishing, travel, right? Who got married? Who has kids? Right, okay, right? Who falls in love? Who reads books? Who travels the world? Bullshit that humans are afraid of change. Humans love change, they love different things, they love stuff that works, they love going out and playing with stuff. When you run into a guy who works at a corporation, he's worried about getting fired. So that's why he doesn't do anything scary or anything risky, even in his personal life. And I don't know what it is. It's very particular to just kind of corporate programmers. When I've been at startups, I've been at government, I've been everywhere, they're kind of like, oh, I just kind of dork around. I knew a dude who worked at a government agency and then in his spare time wrote science fiction books. Okay? He wasn't worried about getting fired. But the people who are like, I'm afraid of change, they try to say everyone else is afraid of change. That's why I don't want to adopt your Ruby. I want to do C# for the rest of my life. That's lame, right? Learn new tech, learn new stuff. Don't be afraid of change. Go out and do it. But at work, whatever. Use what they need to, right? You know, don't do anything super special for them. They're going to make changes whether you like them or not, right? And don't do that job for very long, okay? I know people who do this stuff for like 20, 30 years. It's miserable, right? If you can, try to branch out, do your own stuff. But you know what? Sometimes it's just a job. And you just got to work on it and be done, get your paycheck, and go do your own cool stuff on your own. Now here's one idea I had. Let's say for whatever reason you want to do automated erotica devices. Oh, yeah. Okay. We got to talk business plan later. Hey, you in? VC money. He's in. All right. So here's the deal. Sometimes you're going to be on the edge. So when I started my blog again, I started it back up. I renamed it Zed's So Fucking Awesome. And go check it out, zedshaw.com. On the front is me in like a leather Judas Priest outfit playing guitar. It's totally not me. It's a persona, right? I'm just having fun. But I was kind of like, I think I might get fired over this. Now, the disadvantage I had is I couldn't be anonymous. I was already Zed Shaw, right? I think if you search for Zed, it's me and that stupid show on CBC, right? Oh, funny story about the stupid show. I was in Canada when it came out. Zed, open source television. My name was Top. All of a sudden, they were Top. I was really pissed off. So I was going to send them a cease and desist order as a joke. But I was going to get a bunch of my dancer friends to do it as an interpretive dance video. Right? So it'd be like, please stop using the name. Right? I wanted to see, would they go, is this a real cease and desist, or should we put it up as a video, right? But I couldn't get any of my friends to do it. They're like, I'm a serious dancer. It's like, no, you're not. You flip around on the stage. You can do this, Never went anywhere. Okay, but here's the deal. If you have this urge to produce and create, but you're worried people are going to find out about you, fake name, okay? Why the Lucky Stiff does this pretty well. People respect it. They don't go finding him out. There's a company in Vancouver that you can register your domain under, and they'll say, we're that domain. They'll hide who you are, okay? There's lots of ways to do it. All you got to do is query anything Why the Lucky Stiff's housed on the internet with who is, right? And then up it'll come. I don't have anything that's like that, so I'm pretty much just me, so I don't have a chance. But if you want to do something on your own and not get caught or found out or have people at work know about you, use a fake name. Nobody ever makes the connection between the two, and you can go crazy and be as creative as you want, and maybe that'll be a way for you to get out from under the thumb of the man, right? Okay? Oh yeah, and the last thing, if everyone does Java, you do something totally different. That's the key. Every time I see someone who's like, I'm going to do Java for the rest of my life, I'm thinking, wow, you're lame. Do something different. It doesn't matter. You could do Java, but just do different Java. Do something different, because I guarantee there's something cool underneath all this. There's something out there that we still haven't figured out. And it's about the people and how you're interacting with stuff. And believing these talking heads and these lame disciplines who are telling you that this is the way things are has never worked. The coolest stuff has come from the people who went, fuck your rules, and went off and did something else, right? Some of the most spectacular failures have happened that way too, but that's the way it kind of goes, right? So what I do is I walk into work and I laugh while they flounder around a lot of times, okay? That's the best part. As I come in, I get frustrated and get upset, and that's the way corporate programming is, and you're producing something that nobody ever see and nobody ever gives a shit about. But I kind of laugh because I'm looking around going, this is whatever. It's a big joke. And then my creative stuff, I just sit at home and I have fun and I enjoy my life and things are great and my separation between business stuff. And I code all day long. I code for fun because I like it. And when I go to work, it's work coding. It's something that takes me like 2 seconds. I don't have to worry about it. I don't think too much. It's not theoretical. It's nothing big, okay? And then share your life with people who don't consider you another resource they have to utilize, okay? So who wants to utilize today? Where's the accounting system guy? Utilize, right? Resources, you got to make sure that you get 100% utilization as they walk down the assembly line, making your products, right? It's awesome. Here, you have a bunch of friends and a bunch of people who don't want to utilize you. They're interested in the tech and the geek and the cool, right? You all look different. You all have different personalities and different backgrounds. You're all different individuals. Some of you are really good at talking. Some of you aren't. Some of you are good at writing. Some of you aren't. All of you have different tech ideas. But the thing that kind of unites all of you is you're all geeks. You're a little on the techie, weirdo side, right? Compared to the rest of society, right? The rest of society is like, I want to get an iPod so it looks great with my dress, right? And you're like, oh, I could put OS 10 apps on this. I can play Tetris, right? There's this one of my subordinates that I utilize. She's total fashionista, brilliant though. She's really smart, and she's got this down pat. She just comes to work, she hangs out. She kind of codes all day. She doesn't really stress about it. She has an iPod, right? She's a complete fashionista, total New York girl, and she's got an iPod that has 250 things on it, and she screws around with OpenGL on it all day long. So she's got an iPod, and she messes around with OpenGL, right? That's the attitude you want. You can do anything you want and be how you want, but if the geek thing, you're going to miss out on if you don't try to grab a hold of it now and start playing with it and own it, okay? And there has to be more of you guys going out and trying to own being a geek. Make it something like, I'm a freaking geek, kiss my damn ass, I'm going to do this. Do it rock star style, punk style, classical style, whatever you want. But get out there and be a geek, right? Thank you. All right. Any questions? You can ask me about anything.
Do you ever document anything that you do in email diagrams?
No. Actually, I do. I do write diagrams. But all the diagrams I do, so I have this rule. If you can't describe it in 7 boxes, then it's not going to work. And if you can't use just boxes and lines, it's not going to work. So pretty much everything I do is boxes and lines, maybe some circles, right? But yeah, one of the first things we do, like if I sit down and I describe something, I drag everyone to a whiteboard and I go, what about that? And they go, no, like this, and then like that. And it's like a big game of tic-tac-toe. So yeah, I do diagrams. But the difference is I don't build it with the diagram. So I write code, and then if I have to diagram it, someone comes in and documents it for me, okay? So I don't use UML to make a system. I make a system and then use UML very simply to describe it, right? I think that's a big difference. A lot of people got stuck in that hole. I could just crap some UML on a screen and click a button. Rational rows will make the code for me. And that's never worked. Model-driven architecture is lame. It's like the worst way to code something. Especially when your language is good enough to just be expressive. You saw how the rules were in Ruby, right? It's straightforward. It's what you need. I don't need a UML diagram for that, right? When the language gets expressive and simple enough for you to do that, then you're good. Anyone else? Yeah? Yeah, his question was, how do you keep your work from encroaching on your creative time at home? Okay, it's really hard, right? And I think the big thing that you got to do is find a time when, before or after work, you're fresh, okay? Or find a way to like decompress after work. And if you can, I kind of hate to say this, I don't do that in my current job because I've been doing it so long, I'm used to just like work's done and move on. But sometimes don't do work at work, right? So just kind of come in with your laptop. What are you working on today? Oh, I'm really busy. I mean, you're not busy. You're just coding some OpenGL thing with a game you want to work on, right? What employers don't get is if they let people do that every once in a while, they'll be fresh for their own work, right? And so you wouldn't have people like burning out and leaving your company, right? Another thing is, like I said, make whatever you do at home very different, okay? So I know everyone wants to get that job where they just do what they love all day long. But unless you're actually kind of the owner of the company, you don't really get to do that, right? You basically get raped over a barrel for whatever you want, right? So I'm very vulgar in case you haven't figured it out. So did that answer your question? Yeah. Anyone else? Yes.
So you're suggesting that we should all be business savvy and programmers. How do you do that? Or how do you?
I had this conversation with John, actually. So I'm not suggesting you be business savvy, analytical programmers. I'm kind of just inoculating to you against some stupidity out there, right? It would be great if a lot of you did, and finally and we got some management that understood it. But I was telling John, if business demands that you know everything about the customer and everything about the business process and everything about programming and everything about user interface design, why do you need the business, right? I mean, why do I have 2 business analysts, 3 business analysts and 2 project managers, and yet I'm the one that knows all the status and how things should be built, right? Why do I need them? So that's the thing, is once you know the code, the other stuff is actually kind of easy, okay? Once you know how to build the code. I can take and learn project management and business analysis and stuff like that, and then I can build my own apps. But a business analyst would spend years, decades to learn the coding, right? And literally, like, you hire these people because that's what they're supposed to do, okay? But you do have to know about it because they're going to use your lack of knowledge about this to kind of get one up on you or take advantage of you or make you use products that just you hate. You want to strangle a puppy whenever you use it. Yes?
So you seem to recommend that you kind of separate your what you do at work to earn your money from what you do for fun. A lot of what do you like? What is a lot of people who are in that situation go home I'm just going to start my own company and turn my project to make some money.
That's the dream, right? So what he's saying is, okay, if I'm doing bullshit at work, I'm going to rephrase it in my style, bullshit at work, and then I go home and do something I think is fun and love, well, can I just turn that into a business? Yeah. That's kind of what I'm saying, is that if you can get in charge and run your own business, rock, go and do it. But sometimes you got to work for someone else before you can do that. And sometimes it doesn't work out, right? Or sometimes you go try on your own and it'll flame out. I mean, it's a thing. But when you do it, when you work at a company and then you have something you love, like you're doing what you love for them, and you're not getting anything out of it, and you're not a partner or not making any money, that's kind of not right. So that's the trick. And I know a lot of people are like, I love games, so I'm going to work for EA. Go to EA to maybe learn how to make games and how to produce them, learn everything about the business, and then go start your own company or go do your own thing or do it for fun, right? You know, me, I would much rather just make a document management system and then go home and do my weirdo protocols and books, right? You know. Did that answer your question? Yeah. Yes?
Okay, so I decided to skip working for a big company.
Oh, yeah?
Start consulting right away.
Uh-huh.
And it's been going pretty well so far, but I want
Oh, yeah. Advice for consultants. Okay, so he went and did the independent consulting. I'm a lousy independent consultant, right? So, yeah, it's really hard because it's a lot of client management. If I was going to do it again, right, what I would do is I would take my name, my kind of rock star name, I'd get a talent agent, okay? So go get a talent agent. If you give them a chunk, they actually work for free unless they make money. A lot of times they're lawyers, they know contracts, and they know how to find people in the business, and there's people who actually do it for tech, right? Right, so think about it, sports agents. How many people know of a poor basketball player? Right, baseball player. Well, maybe in Canada there's poor basketball players, but hockey player. How many know of a poor hockey player? Okay, there we go. So that's the thing. I actually think I kind of want to toy with the idea of getting consultants to go talk to agents, and then the agents go out and drum up all the money that they can for these guys because they get a cut, and they make money only if the consultant makes money, right? Now the downfall to that though is it's going to be based on popularity, not really on skill. So a lot of times you get these guys who are bloggers that really don't know crap, but they can write a 12-paragraph blog post about wet tests, and somehow they're brilliant, right? So that's what you'll run into, which is what I ran into. In the back? Yeah, white shirt, yeah. Yes. I would say, that's great. What do the rest of us do after you've hired them all? Right? So he's asking, I said, I'm really only going to fire someone if they're incompetent and won't learn. So I don't have a problem with someone who's incompetent or doesn't know stuff, but I hate the people who don't know stuff, think they do, and refuse to learn, right? So if you're willing to learn, then I'll stick with you and I'll do it, because that's someone who's going to become a really valuable person. They're going to know all sorts of other stuff. They're going to find a niche that they're really good at, right? So I'm going to train them and keep them around. And I like educating people too, okay? But Paul Graham and Joel Spolsky are like, hire the best. It's like, well, the problem is like most computer science education kind of sucks, right? So the best are people who are like doing it on their own, right? So these are guys who are going to go out and hire the best, but the rest of us have to work with kind of common, mediocre kind of programmers, right? So if you're not willing to train and teach people up, then you're kind of stuck, right? You're not going to get anybody you can train. So at the same time, this is why I don't like tools. So I don't like IDEs and tools and stuff, because it lets you be dumb, right? Now, they're great when you know your stuff, but I actually force people to use either Emacs or VI, and they have to learn one of those. And I don't force them to use it, but I sit there and I use it, and I crank out mountains of fantastic features while they're struggling with one bug, and so eventually they won't learn, right? But I really want people to try to learn, so when they have something that prevents them from actually learning the systems and the APIs and stuff, then I want them to try some bare metal for a while, right? But ultimately, yes, I prefer training over just trying to hire the best. Right? Yes? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So this is the deal, is what he's basically saying is take a huge grain of salt with what a lot of these guys say, okay? And you can see it in the results. I think FogBugs is dog shit. I can't stand it. I mean, it's awful. It's kind of what's the best that's out there, but someone could sit down and write a way better thing in a very little amount of time, right? Because it's like an accounting app. I don't care. I mean, right? I mean, yeah. No, it's. Which product was that? Oh no, actually, we might actually try to do that. Yeah. But there's a problem, right? So I wrote it for a company for an internal application, right? I didn't write it for my own thing to make money off of. No, they want it. They finally got the hint. The end result, okay, just in case you didn't know, is I won. So we're actually using my stuff. Right, okay, yeah. But I'm telling you how I won so you can try to win. But no, here's the deal though, is people did come up to me and say, he's asking, why didn't we just turn to a product if it's so great? Well, first off, sometimes products are way too far out there for anyone to understand. So everyone is still thinking ACLs and kind of that security, and they don't understand why they need this. So it's harder to sell that. The second problem is that so they have to turn something internal into a product, and I really think these guys couldn't find their ass with both hands in a hand grenade. I mean, right? So they're going to write this internal app, and that's it. And if they want to make it a product, we're going to start a separate company, right? Because I seriously, let me ask you, man. I'm starting a startup. We're going to do this, but you have to track every hour on every task you do. You want to come work for me? You got to wear a tie. Okay. So there we go. Yes. Okay. So we may actually do that. Exactly, yeah. We have like 10 people just because of bureaucracy, right? So if we went and started our own thing, yeah, it'd be way better, right? Exactly, right. It's true. Seriously, if you wrap it, I actually worked at a company that did a study that if they did a web app, they could make a certain amount of money. If they wrapped it in a freaking box and gave people basically Firefox talking to the web app that they thought was a local desktop app, they could charge 10 times as much. That's how stupid they are, right? More questions? Yes, you. Yes. So the first step, he's asking, is there hope? Can you get to a stage where they trust your judgment and they demand your creativity and you're considered a partner and you're a part of it? Okay, the first thing is all the guys who think that building software is manufacturing, well, we don't have Pol Pot, so we can't shoot them in the head, but you either have to wait for them to move out of the industry and move on. It's actually really bad. I've worked so hard in some companies to have guys just cancel projects and move on, okay? So that's the thing, is the people in charge now need to move off, and people like you need to replace them. Technologists, okay? There needs to start being education about leadership technology. What's it like to run a company that is doing this stuff? The same way I can go to a journalism school and learn how to build a paper or how to do a magazine, okay? It's got to be more along those lines, less along the business manufacturing lines and more along what you guys are actually doing, which is building something creative, okay? And then the final thing is all of you got to quit lying, right? So I got guys that chat on IRC at work, right? And I got guys who, come in and I even do it, You got to start getting more professional and above board about how you do stuff at work and making it so that when people say, oh, this guy is working all day long, that's really great, It's tough, right? Because most of the crap you do is boring, right? You don't want to sit there all day doing it, right? So, but I think if you had that change, then that'd happen. Oh, it's almost time.
What's your energy drink choices? How many have you had today?
Ah,
Off the wall. And if I had that,
coffee.
I have no problem with doing 50 things to say to do it a day.
Coffee, but I'm just a hyper guy in general, right? And here's the thing, I actually don't drink. So if you guys want to buy me a drink, it's going to be a Coke. So when I go to conferences, I drink nothing but Coke for like weeks. So, right? So I think last time was like 12. One more? Sometimes, but a lot of times they don't recognize that what you've done is actually very cool or very good. So what you have to give them is you have to work hard, and you're not going to give them exactly what they want. So the hard work is actually giving them what they want and molding it and shaping it. But you're not going to be able to give them anything super cool. They won't recognize it. That's actually the reason why their business exists, because they make money at something completely different. So when they see something new, they kind of look at it and they go, that's weird, and they just kind of walk away from it, right? So I'll give you a real example. This company has a hard time of finding other companies. So we bought a company feed. And we just did a little autocomplete, so you can type in anything, and these companies come up. It's great. We showed it to people who look for companies. They went, and? They didn't get that we had a full index text search of every single company that we could get our hands on because it was in an autocomplete. They just didn't get it. So that's the thing, is a lot of times they're just completely oblivious of technology. You have to actually kind of give it to them and let them play with it for a long time. Then they go, oh, I see. So it's almost a self-preservation. You could waste months working on something that they will never understand. Or you can waste a little bit of a week and then let them play with it, and then they'll understand it, and a little bit more, and play with it and understand it. Right. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Kate, just come up after. It'll be cool. All right. So, thanks very much.
Thank you.
We have some.
Whoa.
Ladies and gentlemen, Zed Shaw.